Good afternoon. Welcome to another edition of Legal Access. We get together Thursdays at this time to give you the opportunity to ask questions about different aspects of the law. So if you have any questions today, we're doing real estate law. The phone number's on your screen, 843-848-8080. Give us a call. We've got 30 full minutes to get you on the air and get all your questions answered. Whether you're buying, whether you're selling, we're well equipped with our panel today to answer all of your questions. First of all, to my left is Ken Corbett.
How are you?
Doing good. Welcome back. To your left as well is Trent Redmond. And it seems like you and Trenton kind of travel in packs.
We're
Whenever we do the real estate show, you guys are regulars. But we do have somebody new to your left. Welcome to Kim Thompson. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm doing great.
And we'll start with you, Ken. Your firm is what, and what else do you work with, if anything, besides real estate?
Mostly real estate, commercial and residential. But with real estate sometimes comes probate. We do some estate planning and some LLC and corporate stuff, but mostly related to commercial and residential real estate.
And Trenton, same question to you. Besides real estate, does your firm work with anything else?
Yeah, I'm with Newbie, Sartip, and Maisel in Myrtle Beach, and we handle residential and commercial real estate, as well as business formations and transactions, collections work, personal injury, and some civil litigation.
And Kim, what is your firm, and what else do you work with?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm with the law office of Natasha Hanna, and super excited to be here today. Thank you for having me. We do real estate, obviously. We also do some simple estate planning, LLC formation, and then we also do personal injury and civil litigation and some criminal defense as well.
Now, I know you guys are not involved in buying and selling and be out on the streets and having open houses and things like that, but I've seen a lot of, in just the last couple of days, there's been a lot of stories that have been out as far as real estate and housing is concerned. I guess existing home sales are down by like 9%. I mean, it's like the slowest it's been in a long time. They say that prices of houses are up by about 2% over the same time last year. Are we seeing a slowdown in the Myrtle Beach area, the same as they're seeing nationally?
Not quite as bad nationally. I think we all could agree the third quarter and part of the fourth quarter of last year was a little bit of a slump, and then it started off pretty strong, and now it's sort of leveled off. I think a lot of people that are considering buying are maybe pulling back, waiting on to see if these interest rates are going to come down. And then I believe two things will happen. I think we'll be busier in real estate closings, but also in refinancing, because most of the time if you can reduce your interest rate by a point and you intend on staying in the property, it usually makes sense to do the refinance.
Correct.
So we're still busy here along the Grand Strand.
Yeah,
New and existing homes?
We're a very strong kind of retirement secondary investment property community, so we don't tend to follow the national averages. In South Carolina in particular, you still have kind of the lower cost of living, lower property taxes, so it's still an attractive market for people who are coming from up north or out west, who are selling their properties and coming in here to either retire or have some beach access in the summertime.
Yeah, we have the beach.
Right?
That's right.
We have the beach. So we definitely are still steady, I think, as opposed to other states.
That's all residential. What is commercial real estate? Are we keeping up? I mean, are people coming down here opening businesses?
Yes, but I think too, commercial kind of took a hit during COVID in terms of people discovering that work from home might be a little bit more attractive and you wouldn't have the overhead of an office. So I don't necessarily know if it's as strong, but I definitely do see some development and movement with businesses coming in.
I think the commercial development as it relates to Horry and Georgetown County is indirectly but sometimes directly related to the service industry that's handling all the 80,000 new people that have moved in here.
Yes.
You got to have, there are more termite guys, there are more electrical companies, there are more HVAC companies, there are a lot more service-oriented industries coming to move here to service all these new people that have moved here, for sure.
And one thing you have in the commercial industry is, with residential, your average mortgage term tends to be 30-year mortgage. With the commercial, a lot of the time you see, interest payments for 5 years and a 5-year balloon. Well, when did everybody do a lot of commercial refinances? About 2020, when the rates were low during COVID. And so I think we're coming up to what will be a decision point for a lot of commercial investors with those loans coming due.
I'll write that down and keep you to it. So when we get when we get to like 2025, which we're already there, so we'll go back and check the stats during our next break. Our phone lines are open. The number's on your screen. If you have any questions about real estate law, this is the day to give us a call. Let's go to Surfside Beach first of all. Barbara's on the line with us. Hi, Barbara. Thanks for calling in today. What's your question for the panel?
Hi. My question is, I purchased a condo about a year ago, and when we purchased it, it looked okay. She had checked off that there was no issues when we closed, but when we got in there, all of a sudden we found the floors were uneven. She pieced things. We found out there was a flood. Everything was molded when we took it apart. Do I have any recourse for this?
Well, I would hope you have some recourse. The difficulty is that it's as is where is state pretty much in South Carolina, and it's up to the buyer and their agent to a large degree to set up inspections, to also potentially review HOA minutes that could reflect some structural or other issues related to the buildings that may require special assessments. If you have that many problems, it would advise you to see a litigation specialist, a lawyer that deals with that type of stuff to make sure that everything was on the up and up and there was no fraud involved in the representations regarding the property.
Would that be a real estate lawyer or a civil lawyer?
Well, either, but most of the time, real estate lawyers like us don't actually get into the muddy parts of litigation, but there are a lot of lawyers that love to take cases like that. So
Correct.
they're certainly out there to investigate and to get an opinion from those lawyers whether they could help her or not.
Kim, you were writing feverishly. Did you have something to add to what?
Oh,
Ken
no,
had?
I just, anytime someone asks me a question, I start taking notes just so I can follow the fact pattern, I
You're
guess.
very organized. I like that. Barbara, thanks for calling in today. Hopefully that helps. And I guess that brings up the larger question before we get to John on the line. John, hang on a second. As far as getting inspections done and stuff like that before you move into a property, is that the responsibility of the seller or the buyer?
It's negotiable, really. Most of the time, the buyer would want to hire their person to make sure they were independent and that they didn't have any ties to the seller. Same thing on termite letters. Usually in the contract, it gives the buyer or the seller the opportunity to pick the termite letter, but I'd always want an independent company, not one that may have it under bond. So all these are questions usually that very professional realtors, and there are quite a lot of them around that can help clients deal with those questions. But it's so important. We had one yesterday where the people did their walkthrough in the morning, and then they came to sign and they said, but hold up everything because we couldn't get the attic down and it had a funny smell.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they gave us the green light to close it and the smell was continuing, and then they called back and said, can we back out? I said, no, unfortunately, you've already, we've recorded the deed, you told us everything was in order. So it's really critical for the buyers to do their due diligence and make sure they know what they're buying.
Yeah, I cannot stress enough having a great property inspector, for sure. You definitely want someone that's going to go in there and pay attention, and some realtors obviously have a problem with how nitpicky the inspection reports get because it could kill deals, but you definitely want to know kind of where the problems lie. So do your due diligence in which property inspection company you hire.
And Ken, not to nitpick here, but you mentioned termites 3 times so far today. Do you have a thing for termites, or is that a big problem
Well,
here?
as a real estate lawyer, the first house I bought, I didn't do a termite inspection and it had termites.
There you go, yeah. All right, let's go back to the phones. We got John from Murrells Inlet on with us right now. Hi, John. Thanks for hanging on. What's your question for the panel today?
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Sure
The
thing.
question is looking at developing a commercial piece of property in Murrells Inlet. It happens to be in Georgetown County, and I know the live oak situation, the trees, is certainly a concern in that area. And my understanding was if you had removed a live oak tree, there's a penalty of like $500 for doing that. But recently, I believe so many developers just went ahead and sawed them down, and they got penalized. They just paid the fine. But I believe now I understand the $500 penalty is now per inch over 21 inches. Do you know anything about that? Because that certainly makes a big difference if there's a whole group of live oak properties on a property that you're looking to buy.
I'm not familiar with the specifics of that, but I'm happy to hear that there is some definitive action to protect those type of trees. There's no question about it. It just saddens me as a native from Horry County to see these clear cuttings that happen here in our county. They're not quite as pervasive in Georgetown, and I applaud Georgetown for trying to do what they can to protect established trees like that. So if you're developing it, obviously your due diligence is going to require that you certainly check into that and work with Georgetown County Planning and Zoning and others to keep as many trees as you can, but also not impede your ability to develop the project.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would
John, good question. Go ahead, Trent.
I was just going to say, I encourage you to reach out to a real estate attorney to assist you with that and verifying that and verifying the zoning for that parcel. It's always a good idea.
Thanks for calling in, John. Appreciate that. Tell you what, we're going to run to a break here real quick. As soon as we get back, we'd love to talk to you. If you have any questions about real estate law, today is the day to give us a call. Plenty of time to do so. Our phone number is 843-848-8080. Call us today and get you on the air right after this break here. It's Legal Access, brought to you by the McGuire Law Firm. Welcome back. It's Legal Access, brought to you by the McGuire Law Firm. As we're talking about real estate law here today, our panel includes Ken Corbett, also Trent Redmond, and Kim Thompson. Make sure you give us a call. We'll get you on the air and get all your questions answered about real estate law. Our phone lines are wide open, and you got another 15 plus minutes to get on, but don't wait to the very end of the show. We don't want to be able to just, try to fit you in. We want to make sure and give you the answer that you deserve. Going back to John's question from Rolls Inlet about being able to build commercial property, as far as zoning is concerned, I mean, I guess this would probably be more with commercial than residential property. But if you want to build something that's commercial, but right now it's zoned in something that doesn't allow for that, what's the process that you have to go through to be able to see if you can?
Well, the first thing you're going to want to do is get a zoning verification letter from the county or the locality zoning office to confirm the zoning, and then you can refer to the zoning ordinance that'll tell you for that zone what uses are allowed, what uses are not allowed, and what uses are conditional. And then after that, you'd be able to make a decision about whether you want to pursue a rezoning for that process. But you want to get a jump on that because that's something that can take a long time. It requires usually multiple readings at the, with the county zoning, and so you'd want to get a good start on that.
No, it's not necessarily zoning. It's not necessarily business licenses, but a lot of people like to buy properties here along the Grand Strand and turn them into verbos or Airbnbs. What if somebody wants to do that, but they run into an HOA that doesn't allow them to do that, or maybe a city or county ordinance that doesn't allow them to do that in the area where they want to buy? Are they just out of luck?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I mean,
yeah.
that's part of the due diligence that they encourage buyers to do before they put in offers on properties, is to find out based on the way they want to use the property if they can use it that way. I, for instance, live in an HOA that does not allow short-term rentals. So, whenever I advertise to sell it, I cannot say short-term rentals, and anybody that would want to use it for that, they would be doing so at their own risk with the HOA.
Speaking of HOAs, I know we have a separate show on HOAs, which is usually very firework filled. So, I mean, if we ever have an HOA show here in the near future, make sure and watch. It's very fun. But anyway, what are some of the regulations statewide that, as far as sellers are concerned, that they have to reveal about the HOA that somebody might be moving into if they're buying their property?
I mean, definitely what the dues are, obviously, if they're aware of any impending special assessments or any community issues that might create special assessments, they have to disclose that. HOAs have to disclose if they are currently involved in pending litigation. So those are some things that sellers should be aware of and disclose.
One thing we've seen is the need for buyers to request and be provided with reserves showing how much reserve is in this HOA fund. So when the roof goes bad or the elevators go bad or the sewer system goes kaput, that there's adequate money in there to address that. And if not totally adequate money, some mechanism by which the board then decides how to create a budget for a special assessment that then has to be approved by by the ownership.
And that's definitely very important with condos, especially.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Condo properties.
As far as properties are concerned, I know we talked at the very beginning of the show that existing homes and new homes are still doing pretty well. in the Myrtle Beach area, despite some of the numbers going down around the country. But one of the numbers that I saw going down a few years ago is, I don't know if it's rebounded, and that's what I'm asking you, is like timeshares and condos, as you mentioned, Kim.
Yeah, the investment property market is very dependent on the interest rates. I think you have a lot of people who, if depending on what the interest rate is for their mortgage, they're not going to be able to make a profit off of renting out an oceanfront condo. So I think that is something that may have slowed down, but we'll see an uptick on that if and when the interest rates fall, because that is really what people's profit margin is dependent upon.
Back to the phones now. It's 843-848-8080 is our phone number. We have Teresa in Myrtle Beach on with us right now. Hi, Teresa. Thanks for calling in. What's your question for the panel today?
Yes, thank you for speaking with me today.
Absolutely.
I am currently living with my father, who purchased a home in Myrtle Beach. I am his caregiver, and he's 94. We do have a VA loan, and I was wondering, I am his daughter, how I can be added to the loan or to the deed.
Well, it would be, as long as your dad is competent, knows what he's doing, he could certainly transfer the property to you and reserve a life estate in it, which means at his death it would automatically pass to you. And hopefully he would have some adequate fund to pay off the mortgage, because when the SBA or whenever the VA, if they found out that he had passed away, I haven't seen it happen often, but as long as you're making the payments toward that mortgage, it's likely they would not call the loan. But they have the right under the mortgage documents, when your dad passes away, since he was the obligor under the promissory note, they could consider the collateral be at risk and maybe call the loan. But it seems like the best thing to do would be to discuss with your dad his estate plan and whether or not he intends to leave it to more than one person in his will, and then possibly, since you are his caregiver, if he's competent and wants to award you, make you the beneficiary of his of the house. Those are all something that real estate lawyers could advise you and meet you and go through those details with you and your dad. If he's not a competent and you're working under a power of attorney, then it's unlikely that you could transfer that property to yourself. It could be a breach of your fiduciary duty to your father and any other siblings or people that might be vested interests in his estate.
Teresa, you must have been looking at my notes, because that was one of the questions I was going to ask anyway. In general, since a lot of you guys work with the wills, trust, and estates in addition to real estate, is it a good idea for somebody who maybe is getting up in years to put their heir's name on the deed as well as theirs, so that they can avoid probate?
It's always a little bit of a double-edged sword,
Yes.
because as soon as you add someone to title with you, they are on title with you. So if there's a falling out or a breakdown of that relationship, getting them off of title, if they are not willing to sign the property back over to you, involves a court process. Also too, anytime you add someone to title with you, if they get sued and have a judgment rendered against them, it could attach to your property. That's the conversation I always have with people who want to add their children to title with them is, yes, that's great that the property would pass automatically. However, consider some of these things,
Yeah, one other thing related to that is, if he gifts half the property to the child, then that person has zero basis in that interest, and if they decide they wanted to sell it, they're going to be looking at a potential capital gain. So there are a lot of intricacies associated with putting children's names on title. So it's certainly something that's workable, but you have to be fully advised of the consequences both ways. So,
Yes.
And if you're comfortable with accepting the concept of someone else being on the title with you, and if having to join in on signing any sort of deed or mortgage on the property, typically, as a general matter, it depends on your personal situation, but usually the life estate deed is a good way to go, because you retain the exclusive right to use and occupy the property for the duration of your life. Your child or whoever you're deeding the property to, that's considered taking title through inheritance, so they'll have a favorable capital gains tax treatment on that. And then you yourself can retain your primary residence property tax rate. So if you're interested in doing that, I encourage you to reach out to a real estate attorney who can help prepare that life estate deed for you.
Teresa, great question, and thanks for calling in. If you have any questions, we got about 10 minutes left in the show. Give us a call. The phone number's on your screen, 848-8080. We're talking about real estate law today. We're going to take a quick little break, and when we get back, we'd love to talk to you. Call us now, and we'll get you on the air here on Legal Access, brought to you by the McGuire Law Firm. Welcome back to Legal Access, brought to you by the McGuire Law Firm. Real estate law is our topic here today, and on our panel to answer your questions, we have Ken Corbett, also Trent Redmond, Kim Thompson. So give us a call. Phone number's on your screen. That's exactly what Linda in Little River did. So Linda, thanks for calling in here today. What's your question for our panel?
Yes, I have a question. My daughter is renting a condo on the ground floor, and her windows and her slider door have no screens, and she can't open her windows at all. Is that legal?
It would be a code question for the community where she lives. So if she lived in Myrtle Beach, she should call the city of Myrtle Beach and ask for the code enforcement department and ask them to give her an opinion of whether or not the windows have to be operable as a landlord-tenant obligation.
Well, Linda, thanks for calling in here today. Hopefully that helps you out, and you get your daughter on that like that, and hopefully we can get that question answered for you. If you have a question like Linda, make sure and give us a call. Still got about 5 minutes left in the show. 848-8080 is our phone number. We mentioned, we were talking about titles earlier. Now, there's a lot of companies out there you see on the internet about title locks because they're saying people are stealing people's titles and deeds. Is that a common problem, or is that something that the average person has to worry about?
I would say that there has been a little bit of an uptick in seller impersonation fraud, especially for vacant land properties, so properties that they don't think anyone is particularly paying attention to on a daily basis. So you definitely, if you own property, even if it's vacant land or secondary property, you want to make sure you have some eyes on it, see if someone's put a for sale sign in your yard, or someone has listed it for rent or something like that to scam people out of money. But that's why title insurance is also kind of invaluable, because it would protect you in the event that someone fraudulently executes a deed to try to convey your property out from under you.
Just last month in my office, we had received a contract on the sale of some improved property, and luckily I recognized the name and said, well, I recognize that name. Why are we not representing that individual in the sale of this property? And this seller ended up having a fake ID made with the name on it, a picture made on it. I mean, we were probably 3 or 4 days away from closing when red lights and bells started ringing, and we were able to stop that transaction. But I think South Carolina is ahead of most states in that it requires real estate to be under the direct supervision of attorneys.
Right.
And that is the kind of stuff that we're obligated to dig into, along with real estate agents and their professional ability to identify through some of the due diligence that we as professionals should be doing to make sure that we're dealing with the right people.
Correct.
And I've said this before, if it ever becomes part of South Carolina where everything can be done electronically, I'm going to retire because the risk factor for electronic recording of deeds, I think, is very risky. And I would hate to see that come to South Carolina.
Well, you knew that was fraudulent. That's the advantage of knowing everybody in Horry County.
Well, I had represented the family for quite some time. In fact, the owner had lived in Canada at the time, and she was as surprised as anyone that her property was going to be sold. And it was a hefty price tag on a very nice house.
We've only got about a minute left here, but we were talking about laws in South Carolina. What laws do we have in South Carolina as far as squatters are concerned? If somebody moves into like a room that you have vacant and you want to get rid of them, or their lease is up but they won't leave, what can you do about it?
So I'm always perplexed when I see these stories and from other places about squatters remaining for years and not being able to get them out. I mean, I would say not. I'm licensed to practice in South Carolina. I'm not intimately familiar with the practice of law in many other states, but I would say we have mostly landlord-friendly laws here in South Carolina that would prevent that type of thing from happening. You know, when you are entering into a lease, it's important to make sure that you have the right provisions in there. So if you have the tenant hold over, it would be not an impossible process to evict them. That's the first step.
Thanks for all your calls here today as we've been talking about real estate law. If you have any additional questions, you can email us legalaccess@WNBFnews.com and we'll answer you off the air. Next week when we get together, we're going to be talking about automobile accidents. So if you've been in a car wreck recently or know somebody who has, that's going to be next week's show, Thursday at 12:30. I want to thank our panel today, Ken Corbett, Trent Redmond, Kim Thompson. Thanks for being here today. And we'll get back to you again next Thursday. That'll be at 12:30 for another edition of Legal Access here, brought to you by the McGuire Law Firm.
You may wish to consult a lawyer to obtain case-specific legal advice. Information regarding lawyers can be located online or by contacting the South Carolina Bar Lawyer Referral Service, toll-free at 1-800-868-2284. If you are currently represented by an attorney, you should direct all legal questions to your attorney. The nature of any legal issue may depend on a multitude of factors. Therefore, the information provided in this program is purposefully broad and does not constitute legal advice. Please contact and retain an attorney in order to obtain case-specific legal advice.